Good morning, Richard, and welcome to the series of Risk Management Making It Real. Absolutely delighted to have you as our guest for today. So, you've been in this world of risk management for the longest time, Richard. Do you believe post-COVID there's a greater appreciation for risk management at executive leaders? And do you think it's here to stay, or is this again something transient that will fade away in people's memories?
Good morning, Subhashis, and thanks for having me. And really appreciate doing this topic, which is very close to my heart. One has been a practitioner for many years, actually, in the last few years since India opened up the corporate governance in which risk management is a part of it. For me, the way I see risk management post-COVID, I think it has been turned on its head. There is a new normal, in my view, which has been fixed. And however, risk management itself has to become more efficient and effective, so that high-performing organizations actually use it as a tool to improve their performance and just not look at it only just from a risk angle. So when you looked at earlier, before the pandemic, risk had to deal with external pressures of increased industry regulation, cutting cost, etc. However, since the pandemic has come, this has come on the top table of everybody. Because what people have realized that the ones which did not have a good risk management process in place were not able to deal with the pandemic effectively. They were dealing it with ad hoc basis, and it was not helping. So today we have leaders who are not even part of the risk management actually coming together to make this as part of their main function. So risk management, in my view, has become on the top table of senior executives. I'm talking right from the senior management. It's no more left to the risk function, because the risk of COVID was real. It impacted businesses like no other risk has impacted. And if you read all the commentary that is coming out, this COVID is not a one-off. There are going to be many more similar kind of things which are going to impact companies. So risk management is not a one-off. Like you were asking whether this is just a fad, it will go away. No, it will not go away, because companies have realized the cost they had to incur to get their businesses back on track, the amount of effort, but if they had some good processes in place, it would have been much easier. So I think all the efforts and time that has gone into it has obviously helped in making it. So I would just say that companies have fundamentally challenged and changed the way they identify, assess, manage, and monitor risk. So it has taken away the old ways of crisis management, resilience, business continuity planning as we understood it. Because even I was shocked. I thought business continuity was all about getting the business up and running. It's not about that. It's about the basic business which actually went out of, was not there anymore. There were no clients, no customers, no factories closed. So, and also all the geopolitical issues. So while you've spoken about COVID, I think the geopolitical and the cross-functional risks that are actually impacting companies, globalization, deglobalization, all these are coming together at one point of time. And I think risk management has become very central to what top leadership is thinking about. And in my view, this is my view, it is permanent, it is here to stay. In fact, it will get more and more enhanced. People will be looking for more tools. People will be looking for more direction. People will be looking for more help. They'll be looking for some structure. They'll be looking for some guidance. The one thing that has to get built up, like in the case of corporate governance, one would need to get empirical evidence over a period of time that the companies which are following good risk structured, good risk management processes are actually benefiting from it in terms of bottom line, in terms of dealing with risk. So I think that will have to get built over a period of time. We've just had the pandemic. I'm sure post-pandemic, we are still in the pandemic, actually, we have not got out of it. But in a post era, one is going to do a lot of soul searching and understand from where it is coming. And I think working around risk at this time, there's no better time actually from a push perspective. But I'm convinced that this is going to be it's here to stay.
Thanks, Sujit. So basically what you're saying is, as long as there is real value delivery that companies see, there is going to be even greater sort of acceptance of this.
Yeah, and also, Subhashis, I will also say that it is important that companies take it as part of their strategy and operational management. It should not be, left outside as a bolt-on. It should be part of main strategy. Like you do your strategic review of your company on various factors. Risk should be one of those factors. And with ESG gaining ground, and gaining a lot of acceptability because of the environment part of it, but then we have got also the social and the governance part of it. I think we are going to see a lot more traction in this area, because also just to share with you, investors will start asking questions. Investors who are going to invest in companies are going to ask how strong are your risk management processes, whether they put money in it, and they are going to reward companies for good risk management processes. And I won't be surprised if someday some rating agency also comes and rates companies on risk management and says, what is the quality of risk management? It's just not about putting it in process, but also what is the quality, and is it being followed in spirit? So the important part of it is risk management has to be followed in spirit, right from the top table, from the top of the company, and then it percolates down to every level. As you know, because you're a risk management professional yourself, that if it is not cascaded down to the lowest level in the organization, because that's where the transaction takes place, we would have lost the plot.
Interesting you say that, Richard, because how important is it to have this tone at the top? Often things have got done because of regulations. We all know that in India, the top 1,000 companies are now expected to have risk committees in place. But ideally, like you said, this is not about what the regulator says. In the India market today, for just not the top 1,000, but actually companies who want to do good business, to be able to make this more impactful and successful.
Again, I'll just try to repeat one or two of my points, is that the boards need to be provided with tools where they can quantify both on quantity and quality the information on total on how the risk is being managed. Because boards will not be capable of doing it on their own. They will need risk professionals to help them. And I think the enterprise risk management framework is something that will really need to be put in, because you have to look at the risk culture, look at the risk appetite. I'm just saying all these tools will need to be provided. And also the management will have to give confidence to the investors and to the board that they are managing it in an appropriate way. So if you're asking me, the top 1,000 companies have to put a risk committee in place, but I hope they just don't go and tick the box. Because a risk committee can be put in place, you have all that, but if you're not doing the actual work around it and you're saying you've got you will defeat the purpose of it. So even on the 1,000 companies, I have a few questions and say that it should be done in a proper way. And risk management is not another committee. Let's understand, it's not another committee. It requires a lot of technical competence, it requires a lot of knowledge, it requires a lot of experience, and it needs to be cross-functional. It needs to have people who have been trained and people who understand risk management. It's a very, very specialized field. So I think it is time that companies hire some good quality risk professionals into the team who can help them, and also use the experience on cross-functional across the organization, because risk management is just not for a finance guy or somebody to do it. I mean, it covers marketing, sales, production, people, everything gets covered under this thing. And so while I say that this is a step in the right direction, because regulations drive adoption, but as we have seen in corporate governance, when the clause 49 was amended, a lot of companies just tick the box in the first few years. And actually, it worked the other way around, because you built in a cost and you never got any benefit out of it. So I think here we should not make the same mistake. So when we are putting it in, at least for the top, I'm going to first talk of the top 1,000 companies. Even they need a lot of support, a lot of help. They will need people like you and like your institute, which is doing a lot of work around risk management. These people to be trained in risk management. There are not many places where people get training in risk management. So I think you need trained risk management professionals. And then as far as the other companies are concerned, beyond the 1,000 companies, I think there needs to be a huge awareness program. And I would say that it may be it may be good to see whether one could build an ecosystem where a group of companies can come together and take help from from a source which is commonly shared of putting this risk management, because it's not going to be easy for companies to put it themselves. It's not going to be very easy, and they will need a lot of help, whether consultants, whether in the initial stages. But then you'll have to, over a period of time, build your own team, and then the team's training, knowledge, experience will have to be enhanced. Risk management will become, in my view, one of the new openings for people's job creation, and it will create its own it will have its own kind of career path, where people will sit at the top table as a risk management head, whatever title you want to call it, will sit on the top of the table. And I won't be surprised, like we have CIO, CFO, you'll have a CRO sitting right on top of on the top table and actually managing it overall. I mean, because you have to work with cross-functional. Because one very important point, which I don't want to get lost out here, is risk between functions is where the ball gets dropped. So because companies work seamlessly, so when you have a risk in a particular function, how does that risk transfer on to when it goes to another function? So it has to be seamlessly handled, and this is where the CRO comes to play a role. Because the marketing guy will only bother about marketing, the people's guy will only bother about people, but this guy will have to take all the risks, see where, connect the dots, and understand how the company is going to benefit. And I would also go one step further, because when we talk of risk, people get scared and they think it is negative. I think we need to look at risk and reward, because if you have a good risk management process in place, there's a reward at the other end. And I think people need to know that if you put good processes in place, your earnings will be better, your back office is stronger, you will be able to grow faster, you will be able to take some of those decisions. I'm just giving you a simple example. Today, a marketing guy is sitting, taking decisions in the market to give discounts or to increase his sales or look at new markets. I think risk management plays a very critical role in telling and helping that individual take that decision in a more knowledgeable way with a lot of tools. That's why I'm saying this, in my view, a lot of tools will need to get developed to make risk management effective, and then finally help in improving the bottom line. See, the end result is everything needs to go to help in reducing the cost or increasing the revenue, whichever way you look at it. So and that's where risk management can actually play a very, very strong role and an important role in moving this forward. And with regulators coming with so many new regulations, one has to see how are you managing that risk, because we know companies can go down because of regulations. So I'm just saying every aspect has to be looked at in a very, very different way. And I would say that a good management will ensure that they have given equal importance or given to risk management than what they give now. Everybody.
Yeah, I think that perfectly sort of tees up the next topic I want to sort of chat on with you, Richard, which is there are enough companies who are already successful, and therefore it's possibly just because they were good business leaders, they took the right decisions. So, but they may not have the most structured risk management framework or approach in place. So, how do you get executive leadership to recognize the need for it, to make it more institutionalized versus people dependent, And would you say business by intuition is an effective alternative for structured risk management?
So somebody asked me a question sometime back, and this is many years back, by saying, you're coming with all this risk management and all these kind of things. So you think you've got something new to add? I said, no, I've got nothing new to add. I'm only bringing a science to it. Because a proprietor or a owner of a business always manages risk, right? And that was very people dependent. Please understand two things. Two things have changed, or few things have changed. Number one, businesses have become more complex. They become larger. They become global. They've got the technology has come in and disrupted a lot of things the way we work. It is not humanly possible to have risk management through intuition anymore. So it worked at some point of time because the promoter owned 100% of the company, ensured that the company made its profit, etc. But today the businesses are too large. Even that promoter who was managing on his own cannot manage anymore because it's gone too big for that individual span of control. Because today's company could be having branches and factories all over the world, etc. So I think risk management, like any other thing which grows, you need process. And that process, which is a structured process, will help companies take structured decisions. So when you go to the market, again, and coming back to my own marketing example, you say, I want to give 5% discount. Now, earlier promoter would have taken on his own intuition, okay, 5%, fine, I'm making X money, I can give 5%. But today that 5% maybe you putting the company into a loss. Maybe. So, so the decision that has to be taken in a structured way, that if we give a 5% discount, how is it going to impact my bottom line? How is it going to impact? And these are the things which the person will be made ready with. And this can only come from a structured program. So we need to have structured programs. We need to have, I'm sorry, I'm coming back to the whole thing. We need to have it very IT enabled. We need to have dashboards. We need to have systems and processes which alert the company immediately. It's like any other, in a telecom company, you have this fraud risk alert. So we need to have this risk alerts coming out of the company that there is a breach of risk. So I think it needs to be, I'm talking this at the very highest level when we reach there, but I think we need to have a lot of tools which enable companies to take those decisions. So I'm not for intuition. For small businesses, it may be still okay, but not for the companies that we are talking about, or the companies which aim to be. Just take a small, Subhashis, let's take a small company, a startup, which is now growing into, hoping to become a large company. If it doesn't put the risk management processes in place now, it is going to suffer. So I've known of so many companies which have actually adopted good practices even when they were small. They grew large, they became highly profitable and highly successful. So it's the companies need to make that choice. Ultimately, it's going to be valuations, it's going to be investors, it's going to be rating agencies which are going to determine how companies will operate in this market. And we are going to see those external forces come in, which are going to force companies to actually get there.
So, Richard, again, as the co-chair of the initiative between FICCI and GRMI, the risk task force, as you all are looking at building this risk code, what would you define at the end of it as saying we were successful?
When I became a part of this task force, my dream was that this risk code should be adopted by the country. The risk code that we are putting together should be adopted by the country as the framework in which all companies will operate. And because there is currently no framework or no code available within the country, or even globally, I don't know how many of them are available, but I think this is something that will move. And this risk code is just not like a COSO framework or, just putting it there. It is about how practically you will run your company, how practically you will manage your risk, and how you will put it together. And this is obviously the basic minimum that you require, with some good practices thrown in. I think companies, for me, success would be that if this code is adopted by the regulators and by the companies, by the regulators would be the first step, because then they will implement and say, here's a risk code with whatever tweakings or, fine thing that they would like to put together. And there is adoption across companies, and just not adoption because the regulator wanted it, but because the companies believe that this risk code is good for them. That's the ultimate success. But I would say the first success would be the regulator accepting this risk code, and coming from an organization like FICCI, which has got huge number of corporate members. FICCI can make it this thing, voluntary, at least in the beginning, to start with, for their companies to adopt it, and then the regulators pick it up, because I'm sure the regulator is going to look at this very seriously, because there is nothing like this available within the country. And seeing the amount of effort and hard work that is already gone into preparing this code, I think it's going to be a very useful tool in the hands of companies to actually adopt. And all forward-looking companies, in my view, should take it as a something that they would like to follow.
So as we sort of get to the close of this discussion, Richard, you referred to adoption. So beyond the regulator again sort of making it mandatory for a set of companies, or however they do, what do you think companies would need to do for better adoption, better implementation of the risk code? How does it become their DNA?
Okay. So I think the way we go about it, Subhashis, I think there first needs to be awareness programs where there will be a lot of conferences, awareness sessions. What is this risk code about? How does it help companies? I think the business case needs to be made out of it as to how is it good for business. And because once you're able to get the business case made out and say that this is good for you, and if you follow this risk code, it will be good for your company, you will be more, you will be able to effectively run your company better, and you will be better against your competition. So if one can give them that satisfaction, that if you take two companies, one who's not following this and one who's following it, is there any difference in it? And there will have to be very quickly, and in today's world, we know everything is about speed. How do we actually get this kind of information out there to them quicker enough, and not wait for some 4 years or 5 years to take out historical data, because you can even give it at a much faster pace. I think use of technology, use of it. So I would say first is the awareness session. Secondly is to get, we need teams of people who are trained, who can actually go and put this in place, because like I said, we have shortage of risk management professionals in this country, of trained risk management professionals, because this is a very specialized field. So I think one would need to do the training around the culture, around understanding what this key framework is all about, then putting it, creating a risk awareness in the company, and then building out the key risk parameters that need to be put in. And how do you engage in choices and alternatives that companies will need to take while adopting this risk management? And also, how do you get your risk governance up and running? Two things are going to happen, in my view, which this is going to drive it. One is, you said beyond the regulator making it mandatory, right? Beyond the regulator making it mandatory, it is going to be their own profit and loss account, or their own competitive positioning, their own ability to get funds, their own ability to run their companies more effectively, which is going to drive it. And I think if we are able to convince the promoters that, or the people who are managing the companies, this is the right investment that you have to make. Because let's be clear, there is an investment, but that investment will pay back in a very short time if we get it right. So I think from that point of view, it will be much more effective.
Thank you so much, Richard, for your time today. It was a terrific discussion, and look forward to our continued sort of journey on this risk code. Thank you once again, Richard.
Thank you, Subhashis. Thank you, and all the best.